Bring your own alcohol. By the way, can you say that to people? Great Britain is appalled after reports of another party in Downing Street in the middle of lockdown. I talked about this yesterday. But the opposition now calls Boris Johnson a liar. And those revelations about another alleged party at the British seat of government during the strict corona lockdown are increasingly causing Prime Minister Boris Johnson to find it difficult to explain. London police say they are investigating reports that a garden party was held at the government headquarters on Downing Street in May 2020, while the country was in lockdown. They have contacted the Cabinet Office, it said on Tuesday. At the time of the alleged party, violations were punished with fines and criminal proceedings could be initiated against persistent repeat offenders. And after all you hear, that could count here. According to ITV News, more than 100 guests were invited to the garden party on May 20th in 2020, including the Prime Minister and his current wife, Carrie. Accordingly, around 40 government employees accepted the invitation from senior government official Martin Reynolds. In an email, he is said to have suggested, after an incredibly busy time, take advantage of the beautiful weather and have a few drinks at a distance this evening in the garden of number 10. And further, bring your own alcohol. At that time, meetings of more than 2 people, even in the open air, were forbidden. On the day of the party, Minister of Culture Oliver Dowden had once again reminded the British of the strict corona rules. You can meet someone outside of your household if you keep 2 meters apart, he said at the time. But he definitely didn't mean 40 people. Opposition and representatives of corona victims were outraged on Tuesday. The government should declare itself on Tuesday at a parliamentary session convened at short notice. At that meeting, opposition leader Sir Keir Starmer accused Johnson of lying to the British people. And his deputy, Angela Rayner, questioned Johnson's honour and integrity. The Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon suggested that he should resign. Johnson did not tell the truth about what happened. People were appalled by the government's behavior. And I can understand that somebody says that. The head of the Independent Ethics Committee, the Committee on Standards in Public Life, Jonathan Evans, spoke of the government's carelessness in adhering to moral standards. British media, including normally pro-government papers, sharply criticized Johnson. Enough, Boris! End this ridiculous partygate now, wrote the Daily Express, for example, and I usually don't quote them. Sharp tones even came from within his own ranks. If he had led Parliament astray, he would have to resign, said the head of the Scottish Tories, Douglas Ross, to a Mirror reporter. In May 2020, strict corona regulations were in force. Relatives could only follow the funerals of loved ones online. And the police warned joggers by megaphone to keep the distance rules of 2 meters to other people. Schools, many shops and restaurants were closed. And 55 minutes before the start of the alleged garden party, Cabinet member Oliver Dowden from Downing Street, from right there, called on the population to abide by the rules. I don't even have the English words to explain what I'm thinking right now. And Hannah Brady of a Coronavirus Survivors Association said on Tuesday that it made her sick to imagine that Downing Street employees partied days after her father's death, while as mourners they weren't even friends at the time they could hug. Johnson himself did not get into Parliament, by the way. He was represented by Government Representative Michael Ellis. Ellis apologized for the unrest caused by reports of parties during the lockdown at the Prime Minister's residence. When asked if Johnson resigns if he broke the law, Ellis replied, "The Prime Minister is not going anywhere." And I'll say, we will see. Johnson's government had come under criticism several times in the past few months for alleged violations of the self-imposed corona rules. An internal investigation is ongoing into suspected parties in government circles in May, November and December 2020. In a recent poll, even among Conservative voters, almost half of those polled said Treasury Secretary Rishi Sunak would be a better head of government than Johnson. And the government official in charge of the investigation, Sue Gray, should now also examine the latest case, as Government Representative Michael Ellis said on Tuesday. Well, as I said, Johnson's government had already come under severe criticism several times in public and within its own ranks for alleged violations of the self-imposed corona rules. Official Simon Case had been tasked with investigating a possible Christmas party by Johnson's employees in the middle of the corona lockdown in December 2020, because, according to media reports, there had also been forbidden Christmas parties in his department. He was later replaced by Sue Gray, the one I named now that is now in charge. And Gray will now independently investigate the garden party in May 2020, as Health Minister Aga told Sky News on Tuesday. Otherwise, he did not want to comment on the case. Johnson had repeatedly asserted that his employees had not violated corona guidelines. And today, as I'm filming this, so I can't talk about this yet, Johnson is likely to face other uncomfortable questions at the traditional question time in Parliament. So the Prime Minister's question. I'm filming earlier because of all the work, and I'm sorry. Will be in the next days. Politicians are used to the fact that their everyday lives are not quite the orderly channels of ordinary citizens. In a democracy, the use of legal privileges is tricky. But if it is about open rule violations and there's also an emergency like in the pandemic, then it can become toxic. This is particularly evident in the UK, where Prime Minister Johnson is faced with reports following the home renovation affair that now he also attended a garden party at his official residence during the first lockdown. In essence, it is about the question of whether a government has to live by the rules that it sets itself. In Great Britain, they are used to the elite taking some liberties. But of course, rules and laws apply to everyone there too. Should it turn out that the party was as irregular as it appears, Johnson would be more discredited as head of government than by his previous scandals. That at number 10, at a time when there weren't even any vaccinations, when such a celebration was even scheduled, is evidence of carelessness and irresponsibility. The fact that not all of the invitees came shows that it was understandable how inappropriate the event was, and it wasn't even half that showed up. The party was organized, as I said, by Martin Reynolds, the head of Johnson's office, who invited around 100 Downing Street employees to make the most of the fine weather by attending a party. And then he even asked them to bring their own alcohol, which would mean they all must have alcohol in their offices. It is astonishing that number 10 was so stupid that they allowed this to happen, said one minister. Reynolds could face the axe along with other close associates of the Prime Minister, but many MPs believe that the money will stop with Johnson. Meanwhile, a snap poll by Savanta Comras found that 66% of British adults believed the Prime Minister should resign. Among the Tory voters, it was 42%. A second poll by YouGov found that 56% of people thought Johnson should quit. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.